She needs our help.
Someone will come along.
Someone has come along. This is what life looks like. People who love each other. A home. You should take a moment. Feel it. You still have time.
Time is funny that way. Sometimes there's too much of it, and other times not enough. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Forever Fangirls podcast. I'm Sheila Amato, and along with my wife Kimberly, we're your hosts, and we're glad you can join us.
Yes, and in honor of the movie Deadpool and Wolverine releasing July 26th, 2024, we decided to review the movie Logan from 2017.
Yes, that's right. It was actually released on March 3rd of 2017 and was supposed to be the final film for Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. But we'll get into that soon. Anyway, in the meantime, our standard spoiler alert is in effect here because we will be talking about specific plot points and themes. So if you're like me, who hasn't seen Logan yet until we actually watched this recently, you will be spoiled.
Yeah, that was quite a surprise that you hadn't seen this.
No, because, well, we'll get into that. But anyway, when this airs, Kimberly and I will be on a plane to London for FanFusion UK's To the Rescue convention. Yay! So if you're attending the con, please come and say hello.
Yes, please, because we also have stickers that we'd love to give away.
Yes.
So come on by. But in the meantime, getting into some movie facts, the budget was $97 million and opening weekend, and again, I've got conflicting reports, but it's said to be around $88.4 million for opening weekend, but the entire theatrical run from March 3rd to June 1st says it made more than $619 million, but that's all according to Box Office Mojo, and if you Google, you can find stats elsewhere.
So it was a raging success, is what
Pretty
you're saying.
much, but again, that's not a surprise for a great film during March because those are usually considered filler months. Mm-hmm. So I'm still surprised it released at that time period.
Well, maybe they didn't think. Anyway, we're talking about movie facts.
This is true.
We will
so
talk about it later.
Jumping into little tidbits, in the closing credits, the word Alpha Flight appears under camera units. And just so you know, Alpha Flight is the name of a Canadian superhero group that Wolverine was originally a member of in the comics.
Okay.
Hugh Jackman also said that this was the hardest Wolverine movie for which he had ever trained, which is curious.
Maybe because he was older at the
Maybe.
time?
I do remember reading all of these things from superheroes where they say you have to like stay dehydrated for certain shirtless scenes and whatnot. If you Google it, like I think it was Henry Cavill who said it.
That sounds...
Painful, uncomfortable.
very thirsty.
Well, I mean...
Anyway, okay.
Moving right along. James Mangold stated that this movie is set in 2029, which is oddly very close now, to avoid any conflict with the timeline established in X-Men Days of Future Past in 2014, but that his goal was to make a standalone movie that was not bound to continuing previous storylines or setting up sequels.
And I think he really nailed that.
And then when Charles Xavier suffers from his seizures, Hugh Jackman did not merely act that he was being pushed away. Instead, he had been held back by ropes, being pulled by two men in the crew in order to give a more realistic portrayal of being restrained.
Wow.
Which I thought was very interesting. Mm-hmm. Again, a lot of these trivia tidbits are on like IMDb and you can Google and find them because the film's been out for quite some time. But one that surprised me most was that Patrick Stewart actually lost 21 pounds in order to play Professor X as an elderly and sick individual.
Oh, that's interesting because I thought that was all like video...
CGI and all
stuff.
that, or like creative filming.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes, it is. So jumping into the synopsis from Google. In the near future, a weary Logan cares for an ailing Professor X at a remote outpost on the Mexican border. His plan to hide from the outside world gets upended when he meets a young mutant who is very much like him. Logan must now protect the girl and battle the dark forces that want to capture her.
So a brief summary. Logan in 2029 is a shell of himself. He tries to keep a low profile, doing odd jobs, and he is self-medicating with alcohol. He is, in fact, dying. The adamantium in his body is slowly poisoning him. Through it all, he is caring for Xavier, who is also dying. They are on the run with Caliban because Xavier, during one of his seizures, killed many people when they were in Westchester. They're trying to get enough money to buy a boat and live out at sea until Laura shows up. She's the young mutant, and she has healing powers just like Logan. She and a score of other mutant children were experimented on illegally. With the help of the nurses, they sprang the children free. Now Laura is being pursued by her captors as she's trying to go north to freedom. Logan is loath to help, only thinking about Xavier, but he does end up helping Laura. In the final battle scene, Logan takes medicine to give him one last burst of energy to save Laura and the rest of the mutant children. The enemy is defeated, but Logan is mortally wounded. His healing powers no longer able to keep him alive. And as he lay there dying, holding Laura's hand, she calls him Daddy. He finally does what Xavier told him to do, allowed to feel the love of a family, and finally rests in peace. That just got me teary-eyed.
Yeah, you cried.
I did.
So jumping right into the good, as somebody who did grow up reading some of the comics with my brothers, Hugh Jackman has embodied everything Wolverine was to me that I envisioned.
See, I never read the comics, any of it, but I did watch the Saturday morning cartoons, X-Men.
Yeah.
And so I always had this vision in my mind with, Wolverine and the yellow spandex thing, but very short. So when we see him in the movie and he's like 6'2", 6'3", I'm like, wait, what?
Well, apparently that's a little tidbit that they because Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman just did an interview with, I believe it was Entertainment Weekly. They were discussing him being cast and that he was too tall and that they really didn't want him. But Doug Gray Scott, I believe his name was cast in Mission Impossible 2.
Oh, yeah.
But according to the interview, something to the effect of they really weren't happy about him. He was too tall, blah, blah, blah. But when it started and when things got underway, it was just perfect.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even think about the height thing.
No.
After that first Wolverine movie, I'm like, oh, okay. Hi.
To be honest, it was the gruff personality because that's really hard to do. You can have the physical attributes, but if you don't embody the personality of this gruff,
angry,
blank you bub type person, I mean, Hugh Jackman just is Wolverine. And it's amazing for us, but also it is going to be the benchmark of what every Wolverine going forward is going to be compared to.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a sad thing, but also what a legacy to have that you really have this character so much so on point that anyone going forward will always be referred to you as a comparison.
I almost think of it like Christopher Reeve, who was the original Superman. All other Supermans, I compare them to Christopher Reeve because I grew up with Christopher Reeve.
And for me, it's like Batman, it's Michael Keaton.
Yeah. So speaking of that, Patrick Stewart as Professor X, I can't see anyone else being Professor X. Like Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart just embodied Professor X and all of the mannerisms and the struggles that he had, right? Because he had such a powerful power. He can control everybody and trying to not abuse that power.
Yeah. With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, I'm thinking about politics, but I'm not going to
They're not going there. That's why I brought it right to Spider-Man.
Yep. So it's just that, to me, he will never be replaced by anyone in my mind.
I think with the two of them, there's something about the way they brought the characters to life that really embody the characters so much so that they will forever be connected to them. Even when they had Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. When Professor X was brought into that, when you see him on screen, it's just, what you're getting. And there's this yes vibe that comes with it. That when they did the teaser trailer, when Ryan Reynolds goes, we're going to be doing another Deadpool. And hey, Hugh, you want to, wear the claws again or whatever? And he's like, yeah, sure, Ryan, whatever. The internet broke.
I was like, wait, what?
Exactly. Yes. The Wolverine individual movies leave something to be desired. I'm not going to lie, but that's not his fault. That's what studios want. Because let's be honest, studios do get involved too much in a lot of these things, which change it too far from the comics. And that's a problem. But anyway,
I think the most endearing thing to me in this movie, Logan specifically, and we can talk about the theme of this, is that the father-son dynamic that they actually had in this. Mm-hmm. You know, Xavier has always been, or trying to be, the father figure to Logan because he's always been, lost.
Well, the father figure, I think, to all of the lost mutants.
Yes, but specifically for Logan because he was the one who was just rejecting it from day one, right? I don't need anybody. And the fact that Logan here is taking care of Xavier like a child is taking care of his father. I don't know why I'm so emotional today, but it just pulled at my heartstrings.
It's a role reversal because it's real. You think mutants, they live forever. Logan can heal. You realize that even in the strongest, most quote unquote invincible people, there is a mortality.
Yeah.
In this case, I also thought that it was referencing that even the strongest do need to ask for help.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah. And the fact that both of them died in this movie is just like, what?
Yeah, I know, right? Talk about ending a storyline. But anyway, I thought it was interesting showing that it's a very raw and vulnerable story. Mm-hmm. Logan longs to have a family, but doesn't allow himself to have that. He protects himself because he's already lost everybody in Westchester. He in the second movie, if you haven't seen it, I apologize, but he's lost Jean Grey, and then she comes back as the Dark Phoenix, which was completely
different movie.
Not going there. Well, that actually ended up as X-Men Part 3, and then they did it again, and it just they've never been able to do that right. Anyway, neither here nor there.
Bring it back.
Bringing it back. He's lost so much. He lets himself love, and then he gets hurt so badly that he kind of shuts himself off.
Yep.
And so this is basically where he feels that he's done so much wrong, he's done so much hurt, and it's almost like he's trying to live his life in penance just by barely existing.
Yeah. In addition to that, like you just alluded to there, he has killed a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And it's not something that easily leaves you.
No.
It changes you forever.
And when people see him and they would refer to, wow, the Wolverine, and they look at him and they're like, what has happened to you? And he's like, I'm not that guy anymore.
Yeah. I mean, he's 200 years old by the time this comes to fruition, right? I mean, his mutant powers has its limits.
That kind of leads into the themes, if you don't mind me jumping right into that.
No, go ahead.
It's kind of the forgiving oneself and fighting inner demons. Mm-hmm. With Professor X, it is implied that he did have that seizure, and you mentioned that he killed a lot of people in Westchester. We don't exactly know if it's a lot of innocents or a lot of...
Well, in the movie, he said he killed over 600 people. I'm imagining that it's not just the mutants. He killed a lot of other innocent people.
See, I don't remember the 600 number, but so I can understand why Logan keeps drugging him to prevent these seizures.
Right. He's protecting him from himself.
Yeah. He's also allowing the man to kind of live out his days. Mm-hmm. But it keeps Professor X loopy and prevents him from remembering, and it keeps him kind of like sleeping through life. So is he really living?
Yeah, it is an interesting parallel, like with real life, right? It's people with Alzheimer's or dementia where they're losing themselves. They're trapped within their own mind. Mm-hmm. I was actually thinking about the musical The Notebook because that was also a theme in there where she doesn't remember.
Yeah.
And Professor X here, he didn't remember what happened in Westchester. And he kept trying to remember. Even though he didn't know exactly the details, he knew it was bad.
Yeah.
Right? And it was just heart-wrenching to see that.
And going to the Notebook, she even sings a song, I'm Still in Here, because she's looking at things and she has these glimmers of memory that mean something, but it's very hard and she feels like she's trapped inside herself, unable to get out.
Yeah.
So it did mirror that to me as well, seeing him trapped in himself, struggling to come out and to see what's going on. Mm-hmm. But also he has to accept that he's part of the past.
And he needs to
let go.
Yeah.
Because again, he sees these kids and he's connected to Laura. Mm-hmm. And he keeps saying, but we have to help them. We can do this. I can do that. Blah, blah, blah. He needs to let go with the fact that he can't.
Yeah.
He's still got this dream and this hope. And unfortunately, it didn't work out. politics did happen in these movies, in the X-Men movies. There's a lot of negative that happened. There were anti-mutant things that came up.
Well,
look,
again,
the X-Men is really
it's a parallel.
It's a parallel to what's happening in real life.
Absolutely.
So
I see the mutants as, you know, anybody as some label us on the fringes.
Oh, you mean anybody with orange skin has dictated is not
Yeah,
acceptable?
Very subtle there, baby. Yes, but exactly.
Yeah, well, if he wins the election, we have no more elections. It's going to be this extreme X-Men and my book enemy. So
yes, it's a very scary proposition. And that I think that's part of the reason why I always gravitated to the early X-Men. Because it is talking about mutants are human, right? Yes, they have this extra thing that makes them a little bit more, but that doesn't negate the fact that they also feel pain, that they want to be loved, that they want to be treated just like anybody else.
And I think that's why I found myself attracted to X-Men, specifically Gambit. I loved Gambit. He, Wolverine.
Okay, so you felt the same way
and
that I
Dark
did.
Phoenix were my favorite. But I did feel the same way. But it was also the fact that, to me, they were more human than Superman. Like, everybody kept trying to tell me, go to Superman. Superman's great. Even the Christopher Reeve movies. They were okay to me. But the X-Men cartoons and comics, to me, were real. I could relate to them better than the Captain America or the Superman or everything else. Because these are humans who are flawed in the eyes of the government. But they're just different.
Yeah.
And you aspired to appreciate your differences in the Professor Xavier's School for Gifted Children, I believe it was. But you were meant to explore your difference, use it for good, make it be part of who you are, thrive within it.
Yeah, and to your point, on the flip side, there are also mutants who are on the dark side.
Who use their gifts for nefarious reasons. The point is, the show has always shown us that differences are good and can be easily accepted and utilized to benefit society, but you can also, on the flip side, be different and use it for nefarious reasons, or you could be someone who is a quote-unquote normie and utilize differences to harm people and to shut them off. And Professor X, bringing it back to the movie, has always wanted to ensure that he worked with people, with the quote-unquote normies, to ensure the future of mutants being able to be accepted in society. And he kind of needs to take a breather and realize that the next generation has to take the mantle from him.
Right. And speaking of the next generation, then, we should talk about the kids who have been experimented on, and specifically Laura. Laura has the same gene that Logan has, where she can heal herself.
Well, technically, they used his DNA to create her.
Is that what
I believe so. I believe they used the DNA of other mutants that they had collected over the years and used them to actually create these children.
Wow. See, I thought that they just did the adamantium thing to her, which was cruel.
Literally, Professor X literally leans over and goes, "She's your daughter."
Okay. See,
because if you notice the what was it? X-24 is the perfect mutant they've created. The reason these children were created was they wanted to raise them, thinking if they raised them, they would be perfect army, and they would be beholden to them because they were raised by these individuals. But they realized that didn't work because human beings, whether we are different or not, we all have free will. We all develop differently and have different personalities. And that doesn't conform to what exactly you want someone to do if they don't want to do it. So they've created X-24, which is basically a mindless drone of a killing machine. You say jump, it says how high. That's it. And if you look at it, it is a young Logan.
Yeah, which was very scary to me.
Well, he was fighting himself figuratively and literally.
Yeah. I liked the fact that they brought nature into it, where Xavier was actually saying, did you notice that she had claws coming out of her foot?
Because of the women.
Because the women, I don't know if he said tigers or lions.
I just remember it was a big cat.
Yeah. That they attack with their back paws. I'm like, Oh,
I know, isn't that
how
cool?
cool is that?
I just want to point out, women have claws. Okay.
Yeah, Kimmy Cat.
Women are very powerful individuals who vote. But anyway, if you look at Logan, going back to the theme of forgiving oneself and fighting demons, you know, we mentioned he has to fight himself figuratively and literally, but he also carries this guilt within him, right? So he blames himself, not just for what Professor X did, but he feels he couldn't save everyone by stopping the professor. He couldn't help anybody. He's literally floating through his life, you know, like you said, using alcohol to kind of subdue things and deal with it, holding on to his responsibilities and to the only person he has left that matters, and that's the professor.
Yeah.
So he longs for his death. And that's just because of the bad deeds he's had. And it hits hard because he finally gets the forgiveness from the kids because he's done what he needs to do. He's protected them. He could have walked away when he looked through the binoculars and saw them being chased. He could have, all right, whatever, and left. But he stayed and he fought and he did everything he could. And he's finally forgiven and he finally gets his redemption. And then he's done.
Yeah, well, he finally forgives himself. And that last scene is making me very, very, very emotional right now. It's better late than never.
It's better late than never, but it's also the idea that in life, we always have this dark side to ourselves. And we always have to face it sooner or later.
Yeah.
So it's the idea that if you face things as they come and you keep growing and you keep changing, but running and hiding from things, it's not ideal.
It's not going to solve anything.
No, because he literally comes up against a mindless Logan that is just going to do nothing but try to eat him away inside. And that's literally what guilt and lack of forgiving yourself, I think, is the metaphor here. Because if you don't take care of that guilt and you don't heal within, it will do nothing but fester and eat away at you.
Right. So anyway, I think that was enough of the themes and good, yeah?
Yeah.
So...
Are we going into the bad?
Yes. I think this is all you.
Yeah, we disagree on this, which is interesting. I thought the villains were somewhat one-dimensional. The movie, I felt, was long enough to have a little more depth to the villains, more than just bad scientists creating super race of controllable mindless mutants for, you know, war purposes.
Yeah.
I would have liked a little more background in it. And I think there were scenes that could have been either taken out or sequences that could have been removed, which is my next bad, to facilitate that.
Yeah. And for me, I thought that, okay, yes, they needed something there, which was fine. Because for me, the bigger villain here, as we were just talking, is that, you know, Logan really is warring within himself. And that the point here is that he needed to come to terms with his mortality, as well as forgiving himself.
But in my mind, that doesn't kind of work, because then you've alluded to the fact that children are a legacy. So children keep going when you're not here because he has Laura.
Yes.
Right? So he's forgiven himself because he's done the right thing and he has this child that will live on for him.
Yeah.
That doesn't really work for me, because that alludes to the fact that if you don't have a child, you can't forgive yourself and move on and have a legacy.
No. But what you can do is, once you forgive yourself, it's all of the good deeds that you've done in your life is what people remember. And it doesn't necessarily have to be your progeny.
Well, then I guess my question is, how does Logan forgiving himself be the big bad? I'm struggling to see that.
It's not that he's the big bad. It is the bigger theme of the movie that he needs to resolve.
I guess for me, it was just a matter of, I knew why they created Laura and the others. I knew why they were trying to eradicate them, because they had created a bigger, badder version. My problem is there's not enough in a backstory or development of the evil villains to make me so concerned about stopping one girl. Like, why are they so concerned about stopping these few mutants who are young and weak and can't really do anything and are trying to flee to Canada to be safe? It's basically, okay, the entire film is about covering your tracks.
Yeah. Like I said, we're just going to
agree to disagree on that. Okay. So then our second agree to disagree point, for me, that family they came across with the horses, it was a waste of time to me. Because you could have used that time frame to develop the bad guys, and instead you used it to introduce us to 3 characters and then some supporting characters. And it was just sort of like adding emphasis on the weight mutants carry on their shoulders, like the guilt and everything, because they get killed because of Wolverine and Professor X and Laura being there. I understand that's the first time I think we see X-24 because Professor X looks at him and says, Logan, let Laura sleep.
Yeah.
But they could have helped the family get the horses off the road, starting their mark of goodness along the way, showing they're like different than the evil villains. But instead, they kind of added to the darkness follows them, which gave me a somewhat bad taste in my mouth that if you're different and you help people, that those people are going to get harmed because you're different.
Yeah, and for me, it was a window into how Logan would have had a family. I know that there's a comic out there called Old Man Logan. I've never read it. And see, for me, I think that the point of it is that Logan gets a glimpse of how family is supposed to be. It's a reprieve. And it shows that mutants are like humans. And I thought that that was an important scene.
Do you think that could have been done without the need of the family?
I don't know, because the point here to me is that it was the kindness of strangers. Yes, the kindness that the strangers gave them got them killed. Mm-hmm. But we sometimes need the kindness of strangers to help us along. That was what I saw from that scene.
For me, I really struggle with it. I really do, because the end result for me was if you're kind to someone and you care about them and you try to see beyond differences, it made me feel as if you do that, you will get hurt. And that's what I got from it. And that's, I think, in today's political society, that's a hard thing for me.
It is. But there is always hope. And that's what I chose to take from it. All right. So I guess with that, we're
just agreeing to disagree on all of the points.
Good. On all of the bad. So now let's go into the cute.
And sad.
Yeah.
Laura calling Logan daddy. Logan facing death, finally feeling love and family he so desperately wanted all of his life. And then
that he never knew that he needed.
Yeah, literally saying, this is what it feels like.
Yeah. Oh.
The delivery, I think his delivery, because he has like vacant eyes because he's been impaled on a trunk. Log. What a way to go. But he's looking somewhat at her, but also beyond it.
Yep.
And then he's like whispering, like it's so beautifully done that it's powerful, painful, and yet it also leaves her stronger because she felt the love of somebody who gave everything to protect her. But I think that was also the idea of now she knows how to not attack and be violent and everything that she was raised to do. There is another way.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Getting teary-eyed again.
You good? Do you have any other cute to add?
No. Nope. Okay. So if we don't have any more cute.
No, I'm good.
All right. So we are at our end of our discussion of Logan. Now it's time for our Forever Fangirls rating. Drum roll, please. We rate Logan 4 stars.
Yay! Look, I know the X-Men franchise has had several ups and downs as far as the films are concerned. The Dark Phoenix comes to mind, as I mentioned earlier. But
you're not bitter, are you?
It's one of the best storylines ever, and it's just not handled well. And I don't know why that is, but that's for another podcast or maybe a YouTube video.
Okay.
But while Logan might not be perfect, it truly, in my opinion, worked to showcase how differences mean nothing in the grand scheme of things. This is one of the best Wolverine films I've seen. There's a soul to it that the others just kind of were lacking. Their pain feels like your pain. Loss becomes your loss. And knowing what is being removed, hatred breeding the same evil as X-24, I kind of pray there's a bit of Logan within all of us to fight back, to stand up against these insurmountable odds that we face every day outside our door in real life. We can grow and change as a human being, as a society. It doesn't matter how old you are. Change is possible at any age. So I implore you, stand up, educate yourself, and protect the person next to you. If you don't, there won't be anyone to save you when those in powers want to replace you with a better, more controllable version of who you are.
Yeah. So for me, Logan hit very close to home. And the fact that they were fugitives running just to live their lives in peace tore at my heart. Being different isn't a sin and doesn't mean that they deserve to be treated differently. Like Kimberly, I had stopped watching X-Men movies a long time ago because it didn't grab me like it had before. I had some apprehension about watching Logan because I thought it was going to be more of the same. I was more than pleasantly surprised. Not only does Logan have a soul, as Kimberly said, but it has a heart. Logan was literally holding his heart, his daughter, in his hand when he died. Earlier in the film, as gruff as he was, Logan was caring for Xavier like a grown child caring for an elderly parent. And as Kimberly already pointed out, we all go through the human experience despite our differences. So we should stand up to protect that.
And on that note, that's going to be our show for today, folks. Thank you so much for tuning into our review of Logan, which was released in 2017. If you'd like to reach out to us here at the Forever Fangirls podcast, we have several ways you can do that. You can go to our website at foreverfangirls.com and find links to our Discord, all of our social media, a contact form, and even easy access to subscriptions and past episodes.
And until next time, stay safe, be kind, and remember, there's always light even when the darkness seems overwhelming. That's what love is. Embrace it. Cherish it while there's still time.